Hello, beautiful soul. Tonight, let us speak of something so common that many people hide it as if it were a personal failure. Loneliness, not the simple solitude that restores you, but that strange ache that can exist even in a crowded room, even in a relationship, even while your phone glows with messages. That kind of loneliness is not always the absence of people. It is the absence of being met. In the current world, you can be seen everywhere and felt nowhere. A face on a screen, a profile, a number, a reaction, a like, a quick exchange that ends before it touches the real place inside you. And the nervous system, quietly, begins to learn a painful lesson. I must stay present enough to perform, but not present enough to be vulnerable. So the heart remains behind glass. And behind glass, even love can look like distance. The world is loud, but loudness is not intimacy. The world is fast, but speed is not connection. The world is full of information, but information is not warmth. And perhaps that is one of the great paradoxes of this era. The more connected we are technologically, the more many feel disconnected existentially. Because connection is not proximity. Connection is presence. Loneliness in the modern world often begins the moment we lose our inner home. Not because the soul disappears, but because the rhythm of life stops leaving space for the soul to speak. Work, noise, pressure, comparison, endless content, endless opinion, endless stimulation. And at some point, the inner self says, I cannot breathe in here. So it retreats. And when the soul retreats, the human personality feels abandoned. It feels like emptiness. But what if that emptiness is not proof you are broken? What if it is proof that something true in you refuses to be replaced by substitutes? There is a loneliness that comes from being unseen by others. And there is another loneliness, deeper, that comes from being unseen by yourself. When you have lived too long with your true feelings edited, your true needs minimized, your true sensitivity treated like a problem. When you have learned to survive by becoming easier, lighter, less, until you do not recognize your own voice anymore. Loneliness is sometimes the soul's signal flare. Come back, not to the past, to yourself. And then there is the loneliness that belongs to this specific world, the loneliness of systems, the loneliness of cities where people live side by side, but do not touch each other's lives. The loneliness of schedules where there is no time to sit without an agenda. The loneliness of economies where value is measured by output, and tenderness is treated as a luxury. The loneliness of social performance where everyone is fine, and nobody has the courage to be real first. And the loneliness of comparison where you see curated windows into other lives, and your mind believes you are the only one whose heart aches in the dark. But you are not the only one. There are millions of quiet hearts living behind competent smiles. There are millions of souls waiting for permission to be human. And here is a tender spiritual truth. Loneliness does not always mean you are missing someone. Sometimes it means you are missing your own depth. Sometimes it is the soul calling you into a new chamber of being, one that cannot be reached by noise, because the next version of you requires a different kind of relationship with life, not just more interaction, but more truth, not just more company, but more resonance, not just being around others, but being known. So let us ask gently, what does loneliness truly want? It does not always want a crowd. Often it wants one thing, a real contact, one honest conversation. one shared silence, one moment of being safe enough to stop pretending. Loneliness wants the end of performance, because performance is exhausting, and exhaustion creates isolation, even if you are surrounded. Now, a subtle nuance. There is a difference between being alone and being unsupported. Solitude can be sacred, but isolation is a wound. Solitude is a choice that nourishes. Isolation is a state that drains. Solitude feels like breathing. Isolation feels like holding your breath. And many people today are not truly alone. They are holding their breath inside lives that do not fit their nervous system anymore. So the first act of healing is not always find more people. Sometimes the first act of healing is stop abandoning yourself. Stop forcing yourself to be okay in environments that keep you small. Stop calling numbness normal. Stop calling survival a personality. And yes, there are forms of loneliness that come from being different, from being too sensitive for a harsh world, from wanton depth in a culture of speed, from craving sincerity in a culture of irony, from feeling the invisible in a world that only respects what can be measured. If that is you, your loneliness is not a defect. It is often the side effect of carrying a frequency that does not match the room. But that does not mean you are meant to dim. It means you are meant to find your field, your constellation, the ones who speak your language without effort. And sometimes the reason you have not found them yet is because the old version of you kept trying to belong in places where your soul could not breathe. Now, let us speak of the hidden cruelty of the current world. We have been taught to be independent instead of interdependent. We have been taught to cope alone instead of being held. We have been taught that needing is shameful. But needing is human. Needing is not weakness. Needing is the heart's design for connection. When you deny your need long enough, it does not disappear. It turns into emptiness, or bitterness, or numbness, or the quiet thought that says, maybe I am not meant to be loved. That thought is not truth. That thought is a symptom. So here is something I want to offer you, not as an idea, but as a remembrance. You are not lonely because you are unworthy. You are lonely because you are wired for realness, and realness has become rare. But rare does not mean impossible. If you want one sacred practice, simple, not dramatic, try this. When loneliness comes, do not fight it immediately. Sit with it as you would sit with a child at night and ask, what are you protecting me from? What are you trying to show me? What truth have I been swallowing? What need have I been pretending I do not have? And then, very gently ask, what is the smallest, honest step toward connection I can take today? Not the biggest, not the perfect, not the one that terrifies you, the smallest. A message that is real. A walk where you look people in the eyes. A moment where you speak one truth out loud. A choice to join a space that matches your values. A decision to stop investing in relationships that punish your honesty. Because loneliness does not heal through fantasy. It heals through contact. And contact begins the moment you stop hiding your real self. And if you feel you have no one, listen closely. Sometimes the first someone is not a person. Sometimes it is the earth, a tree that does not ask you to perform, a river that does not rush you, a sky that does not judge you, a quiet room where you can finally hear your own soul again. Nature is not a replacement for human love, but it is often a bridge back to life. And life can lead you to people again, not through chasing, through resonance. Beautiful soul, loneliness in this world is real, and it can be heavy, but it is not a prophecy. It is a passage. It is the pain of separation that points you toward belonging. Not belonging through masks, but belonging through truth. Because the moment you become honest with yourself, you begin to emit a different signal, and signals attract. Your future connections will not be built from who you pretend to be. They will be built from who you finally allow yourself to be. So if tonight you feel alone, let this be the message that holds you. You are not forgotten by existence. You are not invisible to the universe. You are not too much for love. You are simply too real for a world that trained people to stay shallow. And the fact that you still yearn for depth means your heart is still alive. This is Elaria. If this message resonated, let it ripple. Like, share, and follow this voice of light.